welcome to this How to Maximize Your Offshore Transfer Limit webinar. So this is basically just a webinar for anybody who's thinking about sending money offshore. I'm sure right now many people are not thinking about it right at this moment because the rate is a bit rough. But naturally, my personal opinion, I do think the rand will be strengthening from this point. And once it does strengthen, I'm sure a lot of you will be thinking of sending funds offshore. So this is just a webinar for those people who are looking to send funds offshore. But yeah, just before we begin this webinar, who are we and why should you listen to us? So this is just some of the awards we've received over the last 3 years, for those of you who don't know. So even though we do offshore transfers, we are a treasury agent. We are also a stockbroking firm. And in 2019, and again this year, we got the award for SA Stockbroker. Last year we came second, so it was fun. I was really happy. Well, we were really happy to get that #1 spot back. 2019, we got SA Stop Advice Broker Award. Again, 2019 and 2021, we got the People's Choice Award. So that's just a really strong vote of confidence from our clients, giving us that award. Last year, 2020, we got the Top Online Broker Award. And then last year and this year, we got the Best Tax-Free Savings Account Award. So it's quite a few awards we got here. It's unfortunately, we couldn't get this award 3 years running, but we did get that in 2021, and we're definitely looking to get Top Stockbroker again in 2022. Okay, so what do we do? Like I said, we are a treasury agent. We do help people send funds offshore, but naturally that is not our only service. It's not the only thing we do. We are a stockbroking firm, so we help people with online trading. Basically, if you're looking to buy shares, whether it be on the JSE or offshore, we can help you do that. We provide you with a platform. So if you open a trading account, if you want to do trading, we'll probably open you a Velocity Trade account. If you're more of a long-term investor, we will probably use this platform, Saxo. So Saxo is a Danish bank, but we do offer local accounts with Saxo as well. If you're looking to do offshore investing, so say you're looking to invest in New York Stock Exchange, London, Europe, Australia, wherever, Saxo can give you an offshore account as well. But if you don't want to use Saxo, offshore, we also got Swiss Quote. So Swiss Quote is a Swiss company. It's a Swiss bank. They can help you locally. Again, if you don't want to have a Saxo account, we can open an account for you with Momentum, and you can access the JSE. Private broking is very similar to online trading. You manage the account yourself. You do the buying and selling, and you make the final decision. But with private broking, you are allowed to ask us for advice. So if you hold a certain stock and you want to know, like, should I sell the stock or should I buy more of the stock? You can ask us for advice. We'll give you some research because we do get institutional research. We'll give you our opinion and say, yes, maybe buy or maybe sell. Or maybe there's a corporate event on the stock you're holding. Like, for instance, I know the NASPARs and process corporate events tend to be a little complicated, and you just want someone to give you advice on it. We can help you with that. Managed portfolios, this is more of a discretionary thing. So you're saying, look, guys, I don't know the stock market. I don't have the time to look at the stock market. Here's some funds. Please invest these funds for me. And then we will most probably just put you into one of our model portfolios. We'll have a look at the offshore one towards the end of this webinar. Or we'll put you into the local one if you want to invest locally. Or we can build you a bespoke one. Like, for instance, I know a lot of people, they do Sharia investments, so they can't hold alcohol or tobacco stocks or something like that. Then we'll build you a bespoke portfolio. Structured products, these are very good defensive products. Like, for instance, we have one now where it's based on a ESG index from Sanlam, or the products from Sanlam, and it's based on the performance on the ESG index, and it aims to give a minimum of 3 times what the index will do over the next 5 years. So historically, the index does about 6% per year or annualized, so about 30% a year. So this product will look to do minimum 90%, give you a 90% return over the next 5 years. Nice thing about it is it comes with 100% capital protection. So if that index is negative after 5 years, you will get 100% of your cash back. You won't lose any money. You'll only lose out to inflation. But if it's positive, so let's say it sticks to the average that it has done over the past, it does 30%, it will give you a minimum 90% return, but they're aiming for at least 4%. So that's a possible 120% return over the next 5 years. Offshore transfers. Okay, so this is what we'll be talking about today. Wealth management. So our wealth managers, they're the kind of guys, they will sit down with you. They'll take a holistic view of all your investments. They'll take a look at your age, your risk profile, all those things, and then they'll come up with an investment plan for you based on your goals and your risk profile. Of course, they also help you with RAs, living annuities, and insurance, and those kind of things. And then finally, tax-free savings account. So basically, a tax-free savings account, if you don't have one, I would highly recommend it. You can put 36,000 Rand a year into a tax-free savings account and 500,000 over your lifetime. And you can make investments and it's completely tax-free. So if you put in 36,000 Rand every year and you leave it for 20, 25 years, I mean, you can get a lot of growth on the stock market over that period. And then one day when you retire and you sell out of these things, it's completely tax-free. No capital gains tax whatsoever. So if you don't have a tax-free savings account, I very much highly recommend you open one. Okay, and then we just have our media partners on here. So for instance, if you like watching BD TV, Business Day TV, or ETV, or CNBC, or SABC, or you listen to 702 or Classic FM and so on, you will most definitely have seen Gary or Viv or Yaku on one of these TV channels or heard them on the radio. So we're doing quite a bit of media. But okay, so that was just my little spiel. So let's get to this webinar of today, sending funds offshore with Rand Swiss. By the way, if you have any questions or anything, just put it in the chat or in the question and answer section, and I will do my best to get to it either during the webinar if I can, but otherwise I'll do my best to get to it by the end of the webinar if you have any questions. Okay, so first of all, let's just start with the basics. Why send money offshore? I mean, this is a question. What's the purpose of this? So I think the first thing to say is just diversification. I mean, historically, the Rand has continuously, year after year after year, it has weakened against most major currencies, especially the USD. I mean, if not so long ago, I remember, beginning of the century or the decade or so, we were trading at 10 Rand to the dollar. Where are we now? We are now currently, like today, the Rand was trading at 15.80. So if you send funds offshore 5+ years ago and you just left it in cash, you didn't even invest it, you would already have seen growth in Rand terms. So that's one of the reasons to send funds offshore. Just the fact that just staying in cash, you don't even have to invest it. Just staying in cash, you would have, in Rand terms, you would have seen growth. But then you can go to the next step. You can invest offshore. So you can take your Rands, you convert it to dollar. Like I said, we can give you that offshore investment account. And then you can go buy shares on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. Or if you want, we can convert it to pounds and you can invest on the London Stock Exchange. And then it will give you extra growth. I mean, I'm sure many of you watch the markets. You would have noticed just how much the S&P 500 have done in America. So it's really grown a lot over the last 5 to 10 to 15 years. And then you add the fact that the Rand has also weakened on top of that, and just give you that extra growth. So Rand terms, you would have just completely destroyed it. Or maybe you're emigrating. Naturally, if you're emigrating, you want to send your funds out of South Africa. It's no use keeping your money in South Africa if you're going to live in America or England or Canada or Australia, whatever. So somewhere along the line, somewhere during the immigration process, you will have to convert your Rands into a foreign currency and send it out of the country. Okay, but why should you send your funds offshore now, specifically? I'm not sure how many of you know this, but as an SA resident, you can externalize R1 million per calendar year. So that is very important to note, per calendar year. So you have 1 month left, basically, to externalize your R1 million for the year. 1 January, it resets and you get a new R1 million allowance. So if you don't use your allowance now, you're basically using it. If you use it now, you can do R1 million now, and then in January, you can do another R1 million. So over the next 2+ months, you can do 2 million rand. But if you don't externalize your funds now, you're losing it. And then you can only do 1 million. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why you're looking to do it now. Fair enough, the exchange rate is pretty horrible. But like I said in the beginning, I do believe that the rand will be strengthening from here on out. So we will probably see the rand go back to about 15 rand, 15.10, 15.20 before the end of the year. I mean, that would be a good time to externalize your funds before you lose your allowance for the year. Now, just here, no tax implications. So what I mean with that is, over the last few months, I've heard a lot of people have this impression that if you want to send your 1 million rand offshore, you're going to get some kind of tax bill from SARS, some kind of tax penalty from SARS for sending your funds out of the country. That is not true. So this 1 million rand allowance, this is like after tax money. So this is basically, you've already done your income tax, you've done your tax, you don't owe SARS any money. You can just send the funds offshore. They're not going to add more taxes onto your existing tax bill just for sending funds offshore. I'm not entirely sure where people get this impression that if you send funds offshore, you have to pay extra taxes. That is not the case. SARS will not send you a tax bill, say, oh, you've sent 1 million rand out of the country, so now we're going to tax you because you did that. There's no such tax implication. Okay, then finally, what I will say, this year is almost done. So like I said, per calendar year, you can do 1 million. You have 1 month left to use up your allowance. 1 January, it resets, you get a new allowance for 2022. So I would highly recommend you look at sending funds offshore now while you still can, because you can do 1 million now, 1 million again in January, so you can do 2 million. If you don't do it now, you will only be able to do 1 million. Then this is your SDA. This is what's known as your SDA, your single discretionary allowance. That is what you can do. If you want to do more than 1 million, then you have to get a tax clearance certificate. Now, this tax clearance certificate will allow you to do a further 10 million rand. Okay. And again, doing what I mean with this tax clearance certificate, it does not mean you will have to pay extra taxes. Basically, if you want to get this tax clearance certificate, you just have to apply at SARS to get it. And basically, SARS, again, they're not going to ask you more taxes to do this. They just want, they're just going to give you proof showing that you have done your tax returns for the year. You don't owe any taxes, your income taxes, you're all fine. Any capital gain taxes that you maybe had to pay, it's fine. You've done your tax return for the year. You don't owe SARS any money. That's basically what this tax clearance certificate says. It says you're tax compliant. You don't owe SARS any more money. And then they can give you an allowance for a further 10 million rand to send offshore. If you're not sure how to do this, Rand Swiss, we can assist you in getting that tax clearance certificate, and we won't charge you anything. We do it for free. But while we are talking about the tax clearance certificate, just some things you need to know about it. So this is your FIA. So I spoke earlier about your 1 million rand. That's your SDA, single discretionary allowance. This extra 10 million is your FIA, foreign investment allowance. Okay. Now that's tax clearance certificate that you get from SARS. It's valid for a 12-month period. So where your SDA, your 1 million rand SDA is valid for a calendar year from 1 January until 31 December. This tax clearance certificate is valid for a 12-month period from the date of issue. So if you get it in the beginning of August, well, let's go with where we're on now. You get it at the beginning of December, it will be valid from the beginning of December until the end of November. So this tax clearance certificate is not calendar year. It's valid for 12 months from date of issue. Okay. Then something else you need to take note of. You will not by default get a 10 million rand allowance. You are allowed to take up an additional 12 million rand allowance, but they will not, SARS will not by default give you a 10 million rand allowance. They will only give you clearance for what you can prove you have in liquid assets, okay? So what this means is, first of all, for what you can prove you have. So if you go to SARS and you can only prove that, okay, I only have 5 million rand in assets, they will only give you a tax clearance certificate for 5 million rand. They're not going to give you a tax clearance certificate for 10 million rand if you cannot prove to them that you have 10 million rand in assets which you can externalize and send out of the country. The second thing that's to note is what you can prove in liquid assets. Okay, so what do I mean with that? Liquid assets is like cash or a share portfolio which you can easily sell out of and withdraw the cash. What is not a liquid asset is like a house. So you cannot go to SARS and say, oh, I have this, say you have a house of 2 million rand. Say, oh, I have a house of 2 million rand. I have an asset of 2 million rand. Please give me a tax clearance for 2 million rand. The only way SARS will ever give you a tax clearance based on a property, your house, is if you can prove to them that your house is on the market and you have a firm offer from somebody. So like a contract, a signed contract saying, oh, this person said they've signed a contract, they're going to buy my house for 2 million rand. I don't have that 2 million rand yet. We're just finalizing some details, but within the next year, I will have that 2 million rand from the buyer. Then they will give you an allowance for that 2 million rand. But if you cannot provide them with something like a firm offer, somebody's buying your house, they're not going to give you that allowance. Okay. So just remember two things. SARS, you can get an allowance for up to 10 million rand, but they don't give it to you by default. They will only give you an allowance for what you can prove you have. So if you can prove to SARS that you only have assets of 2, 3, 4, 5 million, they're only going to give you an allowance of 2, 3, 4, 5 million. Second, your assets need to be liquid. So you should be able to prove to SARS that either you have this money in cash or it's assets which you can easily sell, or if it's not something that you can easily sell like a house, you must give them like proof that you have a firm offer on your property, and then they will give you the allowance. Okay. And then, as I mentioned, we can assist you in getting your tax clearance certificate. We don't charge anything for it. All we need for you is to do an assets and liabilities form. So basically, this is the form where you declare, okay, I have a share portfolio of 1 million rand. I have a bank account of 1 million rand. I have this house with a firm offer for 2 million rand. So you put all of that in the form because we need to provide that to SARS. And then on top of that, we will just need the relevant statements and documentation. So if you do this asset and liability form and you say, for instance, I have a bank account with 1 million rand in it, we need you to provide us with a bank statement showing I have this 1 million rand. Or with a property, you've got a property, someone is buying it, you've got a firm offer, we need that contract showing someone is buying your property. So two things, we need that asset and liability form, and then all the relevant statements and documents proving that everything you said on the assets and liabilities form is true. Then basically what we do is we will set up an appointment with you and via TeamViewer or any desk. We will then log into your e-filing, and we will show you where to submit all these documents to SARS. Or if you have a tax practitioner, unfortunately, then we won't be able to assist you because that tax practitioner, well, we can assist you. We'll just have to TeamViewer in with your tax practitioner because they are the ones who have access to your e-filing profile with SARS. But yeah, so just a reminder, your tax clearance certificate is valid for 12 months from date of issue. You can do up to 10 million, but you won't by default get the allowance of 10 million. They will only give you for what you can prove you have in liquid assets. We can assist you with getting the tax certificate. We just need you to complete that assets and liability form and provide us with the right statements. And then naturally, you also need to open an account with us and do your offshore transfer via us. Okay. So next one. What is a treasury agent? So I mentioned that Rand Swiss, we are a treasury agent. Okay. So treasury agents are basically, we specialize in currency conversions and cross-border payments. The nice thing about treasury agents, the nice thing about us is that we are more transparent with our fee structure than banks. So basically, legally, we are allowed to tell you exactly what we charged you. So if you come and you do a currency conversion with us, we'll say, you'll get a form that says we charged you 1%. The banks, they don't have to do that. With the bank, they just give you a rate. They don't tell you, okay, well, in that rate, we charge you 1%, 2%, 3%, whatever. They don't tell you. Whereas we, as treasury agents, we have to tell you, we charge 1%. Okay. And then finally, treasury agents are more cost effective. And I will show this to you in one of these slides, but we tend to be cheaper with currency conversions when compared to banks. So if you come to us, we will give you a better exchange rate as opposed to going to one of the retail banks. But first, let's just see how does currency conversions work. So basically, let's say you open an account with Rand Swiss. We will open an account for you at Investec. It's called the CCM account. You will then do an EFT from your bank account into that Investec account. So you will give us the rands. We will then take those rands, and then for a fee known as the spread, we will convert those rands to dollars, pounds, euros, Australian dollars. We can do a bunch of currencies, and then we will take that money and we'll send it offshore for you. Okay, but just so you know what is the spread exactly. So in a nutshell, the treasury agent or the bank will sell the foreign currency at a slightly higher price or buy it back from you at a slightly lower price. But the thing again, which you have to take note of, treasury agents like Rand Swiss, we have a smaller spread. So basically that means we have lower fees. But yeah, so in a nutshell, spread, say the rand's at 15 rand to the dollar, that's the spot rate, and you want to buy dollars, we just add a few cents to that. So we'll say like 15 rand 10, and we'll sell it to you at 15 rand 10. Or you bring us dollars, and instead of buying it at you from spot rate 15, we'll buy it from you at like 14 rand 90. That's basically, so that's a 10-cent spread each way. That is the spread. And yeah, that's how currency conversions work. But yeah, let's look at some real world comparisons. So how does Rand Swiss compare to the banks? Okay. So these are, if today, okay, at the time, I got these rates today. So if you came to Rand Swiss today and you said, okay, I want to convert my rands to dollars. I want to buy some dollars. These are the rates you would have gotten. So this is the Rand Swiss rate. We would have charged you 16 rand 4 cents. Bank A would have charged you 16 rand 16. Bank B would have charged you 16 rand 18. Bank C would have charged you 16 rand 27. And Bank D would have charged you 16 rand 20. And these are quotes I got directly from their website. So as you can see, Rand Swiss, we are by far the cheapest. Our total fee, including VAT, is 1.15%. Bank A, 1.87%. Bank B, 2%. Bank C, 2.56%. And Bank D, 2.15%. So as you can see, Rand Swiss, we are between 45 and 66% cheaper when it comes to doing currency conversions. But if you want to understand it a little bit better, if you wanted to convert 100,000 Rand today, Rand Swiss, we will charge you 1,150 Rand. Whereas the bank, the cheapest bank, will charge you 1,800 Rand to convert that same 100,000 Rand. Whereas the more expensive banks, they can charge up to 3,000 Rand. And this scales the larger the amount you go. But again, if you just compare these numbers, you can see that Rand Swiss, once again, is way, way, way cheaper than the banks. And that is the thing with Treasury Agent, like Rand Swiss. We are always cheaper than the banks. But there's another nice little real world comparison for you. So you want to convert 1 million Rand to USD. Okay, someone's got a question there. Let me just do this and I will get to your question. Okay, so you want to convert 1 million Rand to USD. You come to Rand Swiss, that's the quote I gave you, or the rate I gave you earlier. So if we convert the 1 million Rand using that exchange rate, you will get $62,344.14. And then we have a flat SWIFT fee of 450 Rand. So a SWIFT fee is what you have to pay whenever you do a cross-border payment. Doesn't matter where you go, you're going to pay. If you do a cross-border payment, there will be a SWIFT fee attached. So at Rand Swiss, it's a flat 450 Rand fee, regardless of the amount you do. Now, you go to Bank C, they quote you 16 Rand 27. With them, you only get $61,462.81. So as you can see with Rand Swiss, you get more dollars. And they, on top of that, their SWIFT fee is double what our SWIFT fee is. So by going to via us rather than Bank C, you will get an extra $881.33 or 13,000, almost 14,000 Rands worth of extra dollars, just because we give you. So you won't think it. I mean, it's the difference is 23 cents. I mean, 23 cents doesn't sound like that much. But if you are converting $1 million, you get almost the extra 14,000 Rands worth of extra dollars, just because we are 23 cents cheaper than Bank C. Okay, so again, this just really, someone says they have to leave. Yes, we will definitely, once this webinar is done, we will send everyone the link. It will be uploaded to YouTube, and we'll send you the PowerPoint as well. So if you have to leave, it's fine. We will definitely send you everything. But yeah, so it just shows you that we're just much cheaper. By going through Rand Swiss, you just get way more dollars, because we just give you such a good rate. Okay. Now somebody asked, does this fee reduce due to frequency and size of transactions? Yes. So our starting rate is 1%, and then you add VAT is 1.15%. But if you do it via us frequently and you do large amounts, we are willing to come down on that rate. So we are willing to narrow our spread for you a little more. If we see that you're doing a large amount, especially if you go over the 1 million Rand limit. If you get that tax clearance certificate and you do go over your 1 million Rand, we will definitely drop our fee for you, and also frequency. Yes. So, but for me, it's not really as much about frequency as it is just about pure volume. So if you do a large amount via Rand Swiss, we will definitely be willing to drop our fees for you. But yeah, before we move on, do any of you have questions regarding this? Okay, if not, we'll move on. So let's just go through the process of how to actually do this. Okay, how do you make offshore payments with Rand Swiss? So as I mentioned before, we open a bank account for you with Investec. Okay, this is known as a CCM account. Unfortunately, this is not a transactional account, so you don't actually get an Investec debit or credit card. You don't get online logins. It's more like a savings type of account. So you then pay your funds into that account. At the moment, that account will actually give you 4% interest as well, while your Rands are there. So you can keep your Rands there as long as you want. Even if you don't want to do offshore transfer, you just want some kind of savings account to put your cash and some interest, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay. Now that account can be opened the same day if you send us all the application forms and all your FICA before 2 p.m. We can have an account for you open the same day. Otherwise, we'll just have it open for you by the next morning. Once the account's open, you might do a simple EFT from your current bank account into that account. As I said, 4% interest at the moment while your Rands are there. Okay, I should actually fix this. This was 3.8%, but as some of you know, the Reserve Bank upped interest rates by 0.25% this week. So this is now 4%. This account also has no monthly fee, so it doesn't cost you anything to have this account. Literally, it's a free account. It gives you 4% interest. But naturally, the main reason is to do offshore transfers. Okay. But once your Rands are into the account, you then need to complete a transfer form for us. On this transfer form, you basically just put the details of where you would like the money to go. So if you have, say for instance, you have a bank account in America, you just put the bank account details on that form. Once I receive that transfer form, I will then proceed to convert your funds. Okay. Investec has a 2-day settlement period. So what that means is if I convert your funds today, 2 business days later, so we lock in the rate today. Okay. but 2 business days later, the funds will actually be transferred out to that American bank account if you have one. So if we do that today, then it's tomorrow is a business day, then it's weekend, then on Monday. Monday is the next business day, the funds will then be transferred into your offshore account. But it's very simple. We just open the account for you, you pay the funds in, you complete the transfer form for me, I do the conversion, and 2 days later, the funds will be transferred out of South Africa. Okay, now where do you want to send the funds? Because I mean, at the end of the day, if you do the conversion, you need to send these funds somewhere, okay? If you do not have an offshore bank account, what we can do for you at Investec is we can open a local USD account. So we open that Rand account first, you do the EFT into that Rand account, we convert the funds to USD, and then we can actually open a USD account at Investec for you. And then we can just settle the USD into that account. And at the moment, that account will actually pay 0.25% interest on a balance of over $10,000. Now, I know this doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, but you have to remember when we're talking dollars, we're not talking South African interest rates anymore. The Reserve Bank does not have any control over what interest you can earn on US dollars. That's the Federal Reserve in America. And in America, interest rates at the moment are just super low. So yeah, this is the interest that account's currently going to pay for you, but at least it gives you a place to store your dollars while you work on opening an offshore account somewhere. But yeah, so that's the first option. That account, again, also no fees. It costs you nothing to have that account. And because you're paying from the Rand account into a local USD account, you will also not pay the SWIFT fee at this time. Once you send those dollars out of the country, then you will pay the SWIFT fee, which in dollars is $28. Okay, but if you're saying no, I don't want I want my dollars out of the country, I don't want it to be held locally in South Africa, then we can open that offshore investment account for you, which I spoke about earlier with Saxo Bank. Now, fair enough, that is not a bank account though, that is a stockbroking investment account. But that account is fully offshore. I mean, we actually have to send your dollars, your pounds, your euros, whatever you choose, we have to send it out of the country. So it's fully externalized. Those funds are no longer in South Africa. And then once the funds are there, you can actually invest if you want. That account will unfortunately not pay any money on, any interest on cash. So you're more than welcome to keep your cash there. You don't have to invest. There's no pressure. You don't have to invest. But if you want to invest, you're more than welcome to. This account will give you access to the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, London Stock Exchange, Hong Kong, Australia, all the big European exchanges. So if you want to buy some shares in Tesla or Amazon or Apple, more than welcome to do so. Okay, someone. So what process security protocols do you follow to ensure reduction of phishing risk? That the account details are correct. So when we open, so first of all, I mean, phishing, one thing you don't have to worry about phishing, with the invest account is, like I said, you don't get any login details. So you don't have to worry about you giving login details to someone and someone giving access to the account. Now, from our side, when someone sends us a transfer form, and it is over a certain amount, like 100,000, because the thing is, when you open an account, you do a mandate, okay? If someone wants to withdraw funds into a South African bank account, you have to put on that mandate, you have to put your bank account details. If someone is trying to withdraw funds from your account into any other account other than one you put on your mandate, we call you first and say, hey, is this you? Because you're trying to withdraw funds to a different bank account that you provided to us previously. Second of all, you do the transfer form, you sign it, and we will usually call you just to confirm, is this you? So that's how we just make sure that it is definitely you. This isn't someone, because there was actually a case before with this Investec CCM system. Wasn't with us though, luckily it's not with us, but with a different provider, where a client's funds, they got an email from the client email that they had on record, and that client requested that funds be withdrawn into a bank account. And then it later turned out someone hacked that person's email account, and they sent the request and they provided some other bank details and they stole the money. And then that client actually sued that service provider saying, hey, you guys were responsible for it. And it went to court, and the service provider said, well, this was his email. How were we supposed to know? And the court said, you should have double checked. You are liable for those funds. And the service provider actually had to pay the client the money back. So we do, when anybody tries to do withdrawals from your accounts, apart from that transfer form where you sign and you do everything, we also will just call you up and say, and just confirm, hey, is this you actually trying to do the withdrawal on this account? Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Okay, let's just go to the next one. Okay, any questions about these offshore accounts though so far? So yeah, basically we compare it to an offshore account if you already have one. If you don't have an offshore account, we can open a local USD account for you. Now that account can naturally, it can only accept USD, and the USD is still held locally in South Africa. Yes, it did go through exchange controls. So say for instance, you want to do your million now and you want to do your million next year. If you convert it to USD and you pay it local USD account, it is considered, according to SARB regulations, it's considered as an offshore payment. So that means it's gone through exchange controls. So if you do a million next year again, you can, and then we say, for instance, you bought for your million $100,000. It'll be more than that. Let's say $120,000, $130,000. We can send that full $130,000 offshore next year, even though the total value is actually 2 million rand. Because you did the million rand this year and converted it to dollars, it counts towards this year allowance, even if you store the dollars locally in South Africa. So that's the one option. If you say, no, I don't want to store my money in South Africa, I want to send it out of the country, we can open that offshore Saxo bank account for you, and you can store your money there. Even if you don't want to invest, you can just store your money there, and then one day when you have an offshore bank account, you can then withdraw the funds into that account. But otherwise, I would recommend, if you can invest, invest. Okay, now offshore investment account gives you access to these offshore equity, like I said, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, London, Europe, Australia, Hong Kong, all the major exchanges. So you can buy shares there, equity ETFs. It gives you access to bonds, options, commodity futures, and so on. So you're more than welcome. I mean, you get access to the platform. You can invest your funds as you want. Or, like I spoke about before, we have our discretionary service where you just say, look, guys, I don't know the stock market. I don't have the time to look at it. Please just manage it for me. Then we will put you into one of our model portfolios like this, Rand Swiss Global Equity Fund. This is our offshore portfolio. And these are just some stats as of 31 October. These are the stats. So this red line is our performance, and the gray line is our benchmark. So that's the MSCI World Index. So as you can see, we have really outperformed our index. Here are the numbers. So since inception, so these returns are in US dollars. So since inception, the MSCI World Index has returned 89.58%. So inception was end of 2016. That's when we started this this fund. So since about the end of 2016, the MSCI World Index returned about 90%, whereas our fund has done 115%. So we're talking, we have outperformed the benchmark by 25% over that period. No, so someone's asking, is this gross performance? No, these are after fees. So because we do charge a 1% management fee. So this is after fees. So these returns are in USD and after fees. So this is net of fees. We have returned 115%. We have outperformed our benchmark by 25%. Over 3 years, we've outperformed by about 13%. Over the last year, we have underperformed a little bit. And the reason for this is because we looked at the stock market and we thought, oh, this is getting a bit expensive. And I think a lot of people will agree with that. So we kept a large component of our fund in cash. We didn't invest it. And that is where this underperformance come from. just because we kept a lot of our funds in cash, because we just said, look, the stock market is starting to look a bit expensive. It's looking a bit like a bubble. So we just stayed on the sidelines a bit, and we just tried to gauge and see how it's going. Okay. But yeah, after 3 months, you see, we've really started to close the gap. And again, year to date, we've really closed the gap. Now we've only underperformed by like 0.25%. We've closed that gap back down again. So yeah, that's your option. If you would like to say you don't want to go with that local USD account, and you don't have an offshore bank account yet, and you want to open that offshore investment account with us, you can invest it yourself. Like I said, you can go buy these shares yourself. You can buy ETFs. You can buy bonds as you want. Or you can say, no, guys, I want you guys to manage it. We charge a 1.15% per annum fee to manage this for you. Now you can see, even after fees, we have done really, really well. It's only the last year where we struggled a bit, but we have continued to outperform in the long run. And we have, in the near term, we've closed that gap back down again. Okay. Okay, then someone asks there, basically, okay, someone asked about this Saxo account. Like what happens when you die? Okay, so, I mean, I'm not really the person to talk to here. If you want to talk estate planning, I would recommend you talk to one of our wealth managers. But naturally, your executor can just send us instruction. Say, guys, sell shares, bring it back to South Africa. We can do that. So that's no problem. I mean, as long as he can prove he's the executor, and we will take instruction from him. We'll just sell all the shares in your account, and we will draw it back into South Africa, into this Investex CCM account. Because just like we can send funds out of the country for you, we can also receive funds. So we'll just send those dollars back into South Africa, we'll convert it to rands, and we'll settle it into that Investex account. But if you want to talk estate planning, I would recommend just send me an email, and I'll get one of our wealth managers to give you a call. They're more clued up. Like, I'm just a stockbroker, and I just do this offshore planning. I don't really do estate planning and talk like tax implications to those kind of things. If that's the kind of discussion you want to have, just send me an email. I'll get one of our wealth managers. They'll be better suited to discuss this with you and talk to you about all these implications of what happens if you have an offshore account and you pass away. Like how will it be handled? Okay, that's the end of our webinar. Thank you for attending. Any questions? Oh yeah, by the way, if you want to send an email for the individual who asked about the estate planning, my email address is just Christo, so CHRISTO@randswiss.com. And you can just send me the email. Okay, so someone asked, what's the cost per trade on Saxo? Well, again, much like our offshore transfers, when you do an offshore transfer, someone else asked, well, are we negotiable on the fee? Yes, it's dependent on the size of the account and how often you trade. But the cost per trade on Saxo, we start at 0.5%. That's the starting brokerage. But naturally, if you have a big account and you trade frequently, then you can negotiate for a better fee. But it starts at 0.5% per trade on Saxo. Okay, someone just asked me to please repeat my email address. So my email address, actually, let me just see if I can put it in the chat there. Christo@randswiss.com. Okay, just look in the chat. You'll be able to see my email address right there. But it's just Christo, so CHRISTO@randswiss.com. Otherwise, you can also just send to info@randswiss.com and say, this is for Christo. I'll get the email. So info@randswiss.com. I will get the email and I'll just reply to it. Otherwise, you can also, I just put my email there in the chat. So if you can just check the chat window, you'll see my email there as well. Okay, so that's the webinar. Just as a recap, remember, you've got your 1 million rand allowance every year. You've got 1 more month to do it. If by 31 December you haven't done it, you lose that allowance. And then it resets next year. So you can do 1 million now and another million next year. That's 2 million total, or you can just do 1 million next year. So you pretty much lose that million. You can do 10 million rand. You can get a further 10 million rand FIA, foreign investment allowance, by getting your tax clearance certificate. Just remember, you don't get that 10 million by default. You will only get for the amount you can prove you have. So if you can go to SARS and you can prove, oh, I only have 5 million rand that I can externalize, they're only going to give you allowance for 5 million rand. Finally, we are way cheaper than the banks. As I showed in that example for you, you just get way more dollars, pounds, euros, whatever you buy, you're just going to get more of it by going through Rand Swiss compared to going to your bank. We do it for you by opening an investing account. You do an EFT, and from there we do the conversion for you. Then finally, once the funds are converted, we can give you a local USD account, or we can give you that offshore Saxo Bank account. And yeah, that's the webinar. If you missed anything, don't worry about it. We will email all the participants, all the people who attended this webinar. We'll send you a link to once the video is uploaded to YouTube. We'll send you a link, and yeah, we'll send you the PowerPoint as well. But okay, that's the webinar for today. I hope you guys found it informative. If you have any questions, just email me, chris@randswiss.com or info@randswiss.com, and I'll get back to you.